that made the mountains have taken him from you. Well, gaze into the night sky, he's probably better off than you or I. He's given to us what God gave him. It's a gift for his survival. It's part of his master plan. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time zone you happen to be in. My name is Barbara With, and this is my World Peace Tour Diaries number 8, Colorado. And when we last left off in World Peace Tour Diaries number 7, I was in Taos having some timeline healings. I'd come from the Science of Consciousness conference. And when I got done in Tucson at that conference, I decided to head north through Taos, and I ended up in Colorado. And today is Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers and all of you daughters and sons and grandkids. It's a beautiful day. My mother passed away in 2018, and she's with me all the time. Today, what I want to talk about on this Peace Tour Diaries is what it's like to be a psychic medium, what it's like to be me as a psychic medium. I'm not sure that my experiences translate into all psychic medium experiences, but ever since I learned years and years ago that I could communicate with people who had passed on, I have had so many synchronistic experiences in contact with the dead. For me, it began, I used to call it the swoosh. So it wasn't really a swoosh, but it felt like the energy was being disrupted in a kind of swooshy kind of way. And then the dead person would appear to me, not before me, like I'm looking at that wall and I see the dead person there, but I'm looking at that wall, and in my mind, in my memory perhaps, I see the person standing there, and then they communicate with me. And I started out because somebody would be talking about their loved one who had passed on, and I'd hear this swoosh, and then I'd see this person, and then they'd start telling me, I need to get a message to my daughter or my husband or whomever. So I'd see this, and generally I would say to the person, was your father tall? Did he have a lot of gray hair? Did he smoke? To confirm that that's who that was. And then a conversation that would ensue that would inevitably lead to a little bit of healing on the part of their loved one who they left behind. And I am always so amazed at this process. How does that work? And I don't need to know. It's a mystery, and I've had so many stories I could tell you. But today I want to tell you 2 different stories. One having to do with a pet sitter that I just recently left. The other is about my own healing with my own family. So the first story is, when I started booking this World Peace Tour and decided to go on trusted house sitters so that I could have an experience as I traveled on my tour, not just seeing different towns, but staying in people's homes and taking care of their beloved fur babies. So quite many months ago, when I knew I was going to go to Tucson and then up into Taos, that I'd go up into Colorado before I made my way back home. And so I picked this sit way, way up in the mountains, even past Aspen, in this tiny, tiny little town. And this woman had this beautiful dog and a beautiful cat in this little house from the 1800s up in some mining town. And she right away reached out and said, I'd love for you to sit. And I've been looking at your website and at your work, and I would love to have a conversation with you. Now, this has happened a lot on my tour. When people find out who I am, they want to have a conversation. So that's good. So I got to her home, and I walked in the door, and what I can say is I smelled death, mourning. And I don't know how it smells, but I've had this happen to me often, where I'll walk into a place and there's this smell. And I don't know if it's that when we're in such deep grief, our senses kind of blur and we don't see things and we don't pay attention to details. And there's a lot of emotion going on. So maybe we don't clean as much as we should. I don't know. That's not how I feel it. I feel like there's this smell when somebody is grieving really deeply. And so she was telling me about the home and how to take care of the dog. And then she kept mentioning her partner who passed away 3 years ago. And Dan did this and Dan did that. So Dan was very much a part of her life still, even though he had passed away. It was a traumatic passing. She found him. And so she's been mourning his loss. And she came out of a bad marriage and found this man who adored her. And every single time he came to see her, he brought her flowers. There was more to it than that, but every single time he came, he never failed to bring her flowers. And so in her home, there were all kinds of flowers. And I took it to mean that she gave herself flowers to remember him and to honor him and be close to him. So she said his name and swoosh, there he was. And I said, do you have a picture of Dan somewhere? Oh yeah, they're all over the house. So I took a look. It's like, yep, that's Dan. And he had this big shock of white hair and he was just beaming, so full of love, just a really kind and generous man. I thought, okay, there he is. And she left on her vacation. And at some point he appeared to me, swoosh, and he said, I need your help. I was like, okay. He started to first talk about how it is that he, in afterlife, was able to get in touch with the powers that be who are helping to organize this World Peace Tour and get me up to this tiny little town in the mountains. And he couldn't really describe how that happened. And he said, I'm going to leave all the mysteries of the universe to you and Einstein. But this is it. I've wanted you to come here to give her a message. It's like, okay, that's usually what happens. The dead person appears and says, I need you to get a message to my loved one. And I usually say, well, then get me in front of your loved one, and I will do that. So there I was. And he said, first of all, would you please deep clean her house? Because she's been mourning and she doesn't realize it. And it's a beautiful home. He had left her, unexpected to her, money. When he died, she got this massive amount of money. I don't know if it was massive, but she got enough money to completely redo this 1800s home inside. So it was beautiful, this little warm, cozy home. And she's an artist, so it was artsy, and there were beautiful lights and vases and art all over the place. And a lovely kitchen, everything was beautifully done. And I said, yeah, I can do that. And if you know me, you know that I used to be a house cleaner, but I've retired from it and I don't like to do it. But this seemed so important that he had arranged somehow to land at this house to help the woman that he still loves. And then he said, will you please go and get 12 red roses for me and leave her a message? I was like, okay, I can do that. So I got this beautiful dozen roses, and the message that he left, I won't tell you the whole message, but it was basically, it's me. I'm here. You know you talk to me, but you doubt it. That's the only thing where the doubt is in your mind. So don't doubt it. We can go on, and as is often the case with people who have passed on, they know a little more about the secrets of the universe than we do, maybe not much more, but they know what happens when you die. And they know that one day or another, you're going to die too, and then you'll meet up again in afterlife. He knew that it was just a matter of time before they were reunited again, but that he's always there, watching over her, helping to take care of her, communicating with her, inspiring her, and he wants her to be happy, whatever it is. And in life, that's what made him so happy, was making her so happy. And it was such a beautiful love story that how could I not clean every inch of that house that I could and get those roses and leave her that message. So, how these things happen, it's a mystery, and I'm okay with that. The second story I want to share is about my own healing and my own family's healing. My mother passed away 6 years ago, although I've communicate with her all of the time, and she does crazy things. That she contacted a woman who I had seen to talk to her after she died. Months and months and months and months later, my mother goes to her and says, tell my daughter she's doing the right thing. And so I get a text from this woman I haven't talked to in almost a year saying, hey, I got a message from your mother. You're doing the right thing. I thought, now my mother is texting me from afterlife? Okay, I love this. But anyway, when my mother passed away, me and my 3 sisters took a break. It was a tough life that we grew up, very traumatic, a lot of abuse that we were taught, and it got into our family system. And so when she died, because she was that, and this is very common, I think that the parent holds together the children, and then when they pass, the children don't have any anchor point, and so they go apart. And it's kind of what happened with my family. And I love them. I've been praying for them the whole time, but it just felt like, let's just give it a break. It was really hard when she died. Everybody kind of freaked out. Let's just give it a break. And my father didn't talk to his brother for 20 years. My mother didn't talk to her brother for 20 years. Maybe we just need this break, and then we'll come back when everybody's a little more settled, a little more healed. So I left it at that. Now, my nephew, Howie, my nephew was murdered in 2012. And it was a horrible experience for my sister, as you can imagine. And I went and spent a lot of time with her in the house that she had bought him, helped him buy, because he was murdered right there in his driveway. So she ended up moving into that house. I went and spent many extended stays with her in that home as she successfully was able to change the energy and heal. As a mother, you can't ever fully heal, but heal enough to be able to have a life in that home. And it's a big, beautiful home. When my sisters and I went our way, my dead mother was like, you need to call your sisters. It's like, Mom, have them call me. How's that? Why don't you go to them and have them call me? It was kind of like a standoff like that. Now, recently, I was on a podcast called The Domino Effect of Murder that's produced by Jan Canty. And she's been doing this for 5 years and interviewing the survivors of those who had been killed as a way to help them heal and find some kind of peace. And so when she had me on a couple of weeks ago, I learned that it's a very rare experience to have 2 different murders in one family. Oftentimes there's a whole family that gets killed in one event, but it's very, very rare, and she has never seen it, where there's 2 different murders. The first murder was my cousin Amy in 2006, I think. And then the second one was Howie in 2012. So I'm on this podcast and I'm talking about it. And of course it's dusting up the trauma, and it's okay. I've got a process of feeling and breathing and moving that energy along. But because of that, whoosh, and there's Howie. And I'm like, well, Howie, maybe you can influence us to somehow get back together and reconnect. And he kind of, So, okay, jump to, I'm in Evergreen, Colorado. I'm pet sitting Bubbles and Luna, the cutest pit bulls, Sweet girls. And I decide I'm going to go into Boulder and buy something that I can only get in Boulder and then have a haircut. So I map out my route. I get the cost cutter's place in Boulder, and then it's right near the place that I'm going to. And I think, my sister used to take me to Boulder from Denver through a back route. So I thought I had done my GPS to take that route. And as I'm driving, I'm realizing, wait, this isn't that route. And I'm driving past all the exits to go to my sister's house. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I haven't been at my sister's house in 6 years. I haven't spoken to my sister in 6 years. And there she lives right there. And so I was getting this emotional. And I was driving, and I ended up at this cost cutter's, not in Boulder, but in Erie, Colorado. And I get there and I'm thinking to myself, what is this? And so I thought, well, it doesn't matter. It's a cost cutter. So I went in and I had this cute little haircut, and I came out and I thought, wait a minute. And I realized I was only 5 minutes away from Lafayette, Colorado. And that's where not only did Howie grow up, but his father still lives there. And he is buried in the cemetery across the street from where he grew up. So what are you going to do but drive down there? And if you watched my last World Peace Diaries, I was talking about these timeline healings, how we find ourselves back in the very spot where the trauma took place, years later healed, and we can somehow do a timeline healing and get some unification and once and for all get healed. When you have a cut on your hand, it heals by itself. There might be some stuff you have to do to it while it's healing, but eventually it heals and it goes away and you're healed. And so that's what timeline healings are. And so as I was driving through Lafayette, I also spent a great deal of time with Howie when he was born. 1 year old, 2 years old, I would come and live with my sister and play music in Boulder and in Colorado Springs. So I'm collecting up all of these timelines. And I drive past my former brother-in-law's car repair shop, but I keep going to the cemetery, and I'm not really sure where Howie's grave is, but I kind of remember it was a very blurry day, the day we laid him to rest. But suddenly, whoosh, I'm right in front of his beautiful tombstone. And suddenly, so much emotion comes pouring out of me. And I said to him, okay, I'm going to leave this note. I wrote this little note. I put the date. I put my sister's name, and I said, I miss you. And I signed my name. And I wrapped a crystal that I had been carrying around on this World Peace Tour in this note. And I stuck it at the base of his grave with the other things that were there. And I said, maybe you can get her to come out here, and maybe she can find that. Or maybe you can do something, Howie. So I left, I went into Boulder, I scooped up some more timelines of years that I lived there and played there. And I was driving back to Evergreen, and I was driving past the exit to my sister's house, and I thought, this is so high school. Maybe I should drive by my sister's house. I don't want to drive by my sister's house. What if they see me? They wouldn't recognize me, but there went the car, and I'm driving, and I'm pulling in all these memories, and I turn the corner on the street where they live, and I go down, and I look, and not only do they not live there, but it's been sold to a religious organization, and it's called something like the Grace House. Not only do they have the house, but they added on, so it's a whole complex. How fitting for a place where he had been killed. And I went back to where I was staying, and I looked up, and suddenly my mother appeared and said, now is the time. It's like, okay. So I'm going to write a letter to all of my sisters, filled with compassion, telling them how much I love them, and hoping that they are having the best life that they can. Maybe someday we could reunite and reconnect. So those are my World Peace Diaries number 8. And I hope that if you're out there and you're missing your mama, know that chances are she's right there. You are the only one that doubts that you're talking to her. She's there. She's loving you. She's watching over you and your kids and your grandkids. And you never have to doubt that. Sooner or later, when your time comes, you'll understand that a lot better than you do now. So love one another. Life is short. Live it to its fullest. Open up your hearts like your mama would want you to, and find that compassion for yourself, for your family, for your neighbors, for your community, and for the world, because Lord knows we need it right now. All right, have a great Mother's Day. Namaste.
Girl talk, gossip of a summer day, long walks by the piling, takes your pain away. Do you understand what you hold in your hand? It's a gift for your survival, part of the master plan. White tails, bow ties, violins in tune, but a rainstorm forces us inside for this concert in the afternoon. Studied faces, put through paces, given to us what God gave them. It's a gift for their survival, it's part of their master plan. 'Cause talents are for teaching, and love is for reaching. And if you don't do anything at all, honey, just do what you can. Sunset, sunrise, another day dawns, full of compromise. Questions of honor, questions of mercy, questions of survival and of the master plan. How can the spirit that made the mountains have taken him from you? Well, gaze into the night sky, he's probably better off than you or I. He's given to us what God gave him. It's a gift for his survival, it's part of his master plan. And his seed was for sowing, this pain is for growing. And if you don't do anything at all, honey, just admit that you can. Do we really know where we're going to? Orbiting around on some borderline of space and time, of heart and mind. Sunrise, sunset, there's still a chance you could wake up yet. You got these feelings of heartache mixed with feelings of hope, feelings like you can't forget him, knowing that you won't. It is the spirit that made the mountains that will heal and make you whole. So do what you wanna do what you gotta do. Give to the world what God gave you. It's a gift for your survival, it's part of your master plan. And patience is a virtue, true love will never hurt you. And if you don't do anything at all, honey, just give in to the plan. The master plan.